I want to thank our sponsors, Athletic Greens, who created AG1, one of the most innovative packets of supplements, including 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. These ingredients support your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. I personally started using Athletic Greens and love the way I feel in the morning after I drink it. And I no longer have energy crashes throughout the day. And the best part is that it's delicious. The founder of Athletic Greens created AG1 because he experienced a ton of gut health and ended up on a complicated and expensive supplement routine to recover. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/Yasmin. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/Yasmin, YASMEEN, to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Hi, my name is Yasmin Tarehi, and this is Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. Today, I'll be speaking with Estelle Bingham, who's been described as the Heart Whisperer. She's been supporting others to find more love, purpose, and connection in their lives for over 20 years. She's a 4th-generation psychic and meditator since the age of 6 years old, having learned Transcendental Meditation. The journey of the soul has been an integral part of her life since the very beginning, and in her 20s, Estelle followed one of her dreams to become a journalist and TV and radio presenter working for media outlets such as BBC and the Discovery Channel, but the universe had another plan in store, and we're going to talk all about that in this conversation. I was recently in London and had asked several friends who the best psychic in town was, and her name came up, and so I'm so excited. I recently had a reading with her, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the show. All right, so welcome to the show, Estelle.
Oh, wow. Amazing. I'm so excited to be here, Yasmin. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for the work that you do. And just to kick it off, the name Heart Whisperer, what does it mean to be called a Heart Whisperer, and what does it mean to live in your heart?
Wow. Well, that gives me goosebumps. It gives me goosebumps every time I think about the heart and the heart's place in our evolution, really, in the spiritual journey, being on the planet, being in the body, being human. And for me, it is a mission, really. It's my medicine, and it's a way that we really truly find peace. Peace in the incarnation is through the heart. So the heart is a bridge. You know, we've looked at the science. There's a great institute called Heart Math, and they've discovered how the heart, releases oxytocin, but it also, when it is in alignment, the body is in alignment. It's that heart brain connection. But really, in terms of deep purpose, deep connection, it happens through the heart. The heart is the portal. The heart is the bridge. So for me, it's very. I always think of Rumi, who, in the Sufi path, that is a path of the alchemy of the heart. And he said, if human beings knew their own inner secrets, never would they look elsewhere for seeking happiness, peace, and inner light. And that really sums it up for me. It's inside, and the heart is the way.
Wow, beautiful. Oh, that Rumi quote just brought me chills. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So you help people connect with their inner guidance, their inner wisdom, and you do it through connecting with their heart. And that's, how I felt in my session, and also how your work had been described to me. So I'd love to understand what you perceive when you are connecting with another person and connecting with their heart. And also, what has kind of just come up in some of the clients that you work with anecdotally when it comes to looking at people's hearts?
Well, for me, I often I went into this originally, and there's a story behind how I've ended up being, doing what I do. It's obviously always what I was meant to do. And I started off really working psychically, and the psychic work that I did, was it was very helpful for people. But what I found that was missing, there was an absence of this consistent growing of the inner soul life, and that really the way to meet the destiny is through the heart. So that's why it kind of, I was guided to this work. And when I sit down with a client, it's like I call it a sort of, it's a bit of a soul intervention. So there's a moment when, and I often get people come to me who they're at the crossroads. I mean, that always happens. There's often that healing crisis. It's dark night of the soul, or change of job, or divorce, or change of country. All of these things that bring us to greater knowing of self. But also sometimes it's this thing of like having never felt like you've belonged, having never felt really in the body. I see so many people who do not exist in the body, and to drop down into the body, out of the mind. It's the heart that brings us into that relationship. And so really for long-lasting transformation, and that's what I'm interested in, I'm not concerned with fleeting transformation, or it's great to feel like you've had a little bit of a kind of frequency upgrade, but it's like, how do we really seed the changes and in our lives? And obviously we do that through our subconscious thoughts. We know that our unconscious, subconscious thoughts create our conscious reality. But there's also this way of real wholeness in the lifetime, and that comes through the heart and the integration of what that feels like every day.
Wow. And so, Estelle, like, how do you, or I guess, how did you discover this work? And then, what are some of the ways that you create this like lasting transformation? Yeah, I'm just, curious, like, how do you help people specifically? Like, if you could tell our audience how they can maybe start connecting with their own hearts and inner wisdom, what would that be?
One of the things that every time I'm humbled by how out of sync we are, and how out of tune we are with the language of our hearts, our own hearts. And I'm humbled by how much our hearts hold for us. And so one of the things to really step back in is to listen daily. And that doesn't have to be, it's not a big, it's not all singing or dancing version. It's just a very simple way of being with self. So, bringing yourself into your heart energy. And I often say it's really useful to keep a heart diary, because what we find in the heart are the layers of our of our lifetime. So we'll find the inner child, the discarded, neglected inner child in the heart energy. We'll find the pain and the grief, old grief, in the heart energy. And these layers, we meet them in a new way. We bring them into the light. We invite them in to the space and alchemize the energy. We work with that energy. And so rather than this heavy weight that we're just dragging uphill, we have a different type of being in the world. We have a different type way of existing, and it's very in comparison to what it felt like before, with low-level anxiety, with low-level depression, with outcomes, going around in circles, the outcomes being the same outcomes. We are really able to manifest. So the thing about manifestation is it's very powerful. So the idea of affirmation, the idea of activating the mind is to reimagine our reality, very, very powerful. But this entry, this feeling, this kind of this new relationship with the heart brings that manifestation into a really, really deep and long-lasting reality. So it's not like, oh, I've just manifested that. It's like, no, I've actually changed my relationship to relationship for life.
That's powerful. Wow. What do you say to people who are just scared of being vulnerable? and opening their hearts? What if there's a protective layer there? How do you work with people through that?
We are human, and in our humanity, we suffer. And when we have suffered in our childhoods, and when it hasn't been safe, or whatever it is, on the ancestral line, that karmic ancestral meeting place, that crossroads, we bring stuff in from past lives, we bring stuff in from both sides of our families and our immediate story. We have to create barriers to love. We survive. And I always say that the lifetime is about actually recognizing that and returning to the softness, returning to the sweetness, returning to the tenderness, the fragility of being human, allowing that vulnerability, giving permission for that vulnerability to exist. And actually, the power is in that vulnerability. The minute you step over the cliff and it feels like an abyss, before you've stepped over, it's like it's like asking someone to step into the abyss, like the cavern that has no bottom. But the minute you step forward and you take that courageous act, you take that courageous step, everything changes, because actually the power is in the vulnerability, because we can own that vulnerability and still feel safe in it. The reason why we are so terrified of our own vulnerability is because it hasn't been safe to be vulnerable. That is what we associate. We associate vulnerability with pain, a trauma, the story. And we get to reimagine and rewrite the story as adults. And we get to create a really safe place for the wholeness, the complete experience of, and what it feels like to be human. And actually, when it comes to love and owning the vulnerability, it changes the experience in a really profound way.
Amazing. Wow. I'm just so moved and touched by your words and just the way that you speak, because I think a lot of conversations are really had in the head, right? Like there's a lot of conversations from the mind, not from the heart. And it's just very clear talking to you that you're really talking from the heart. Do you put your awareness into your heart in order to connect with it? Like what's your kind of day-to-day, daily practice for connecting with your heart? You talked a little bit about a heart diary.
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
Well, the Heart Diaries is about learning the language. It's about, we give heart space to speak. So you can just sit down, hold the heart, and just, every day write a few lines, like, how are you feeling? Like, how are you? Like, allow your heart to speak to you and just give permission. So we're giving permission. So I always sort of see it as like two layers. So like there's the bottom layer and then there's that higher layer. So there's a bottom layer of all the earth stuff, our earth self stuff. And then the higher energy that's really calling us back. Our heart yearns for us to return. Because when we return to the heart, we really return to the power of the soul. So it's, it can't wait for you to show up. So, people come to see me and they have an override. They come with all their defenses and armory, and I'm this and I'm that, and these ego ideas of self, and they arrive and they're in floods of tears. They're sobbing and they can't work out why. And the reason why is because there's been a really powerful override. So the heart is in a space, in the therapeutic space, where it's like, hallelujah, like it's like, bring it on, like it takes a breath and it's like, I can express. And so the expression, of just allowing heart some space in the lifetime, allowing heart some space in your day, like even 5-10 minutes, what are you feeling today? And allowing heart to tell you what it's feeling. I'm grieving today. I'm sad. I'm unsure. I'm afraid. Whatever it is, we just allow that to move in to our consciousness, and we just give permission, no judgment, just permission. And that's the sort of higher self, like activating the higher self, a place of non-judgment, love, wisdom, and compassion. So we're really gentle. It's like we don't shut our hearts down, like, oh, you're feeling vulnerable, oh, you're feeling scared, oh, I want to push that down, I'm going to stuff that down even more. It's like, no, I invite you in, I'm going to hold you safe, and I'm going to alchemize you. I'm going to work with you, because you are the most powerful tool I have to be really peaceful and, to feel peace.
Wow. So, Estelle, I want to talk a little bit about what it means to be intuitive and what it means to be psychic.
Yeah.
And how do you see people and how do you evaluate people? For people listening, some of our audience members may be very new to these concepts. So I'd
Yeah.
love for you to talk about what you see and like what are some of your kind of extrasensory capabilities.
Well, firstly, I want to say to everyone out there, you have the power, and you have the power to be psychic in your own lives. Like, this is your birthright. So, what I often think, what I often see and know in the sort of spiritual circles and psychic circles, there can be a lot of like, I'm the healer, I'm the guru, I'm the this, I'm the that. It's like, no, you're the healer and you're your own guru, and you have the power to be psychic in your own life. Like, that intuition is so profound in you. So everyone has that power. Now, it's not everyone's mission or destiny or purpose to help other people find that in themselves or be psychic for other people, but absolutely for yourself, you can do it. So what I often say to people is, if you go back to what it was like when you were a child, and that childhood imagination, this limitless creativity, that creative imagination that we had as children, to vision, that vision is like divine. But also we were, a lot of us were born empaths. A lot of us have had to deal with that in the world. And like, being an empath is actually, what comes first? The empath, like, what comes first, the karma or the lifetime? So, if you've been born into a traumatic home, you've learned to be hypervigilant, and that's actually reading a room. It's actually builds psychic ability. What I'm saying is that we can all kind of read energy, right? If we give ourselves space and time, we can all read energy. For me, it's been something that I've obviously been able to do from a very early age, and it's something that I was lucky enough in my home that it was not shut down, so a lot of people that I know, a lot of people that I see, it was shut down due to sort of culturally or religiously, or just, oh, that's nonsense, that's rubbish. Like, when I was growing up, even meditating was really wacky. It was like you were really out there, but it's something that you'll probably tune into in your childhoods, and even if you don't, like, in later life, like, it can come through in your 20s, or you can cultivate it. But for me, it's really, obviously it's my life's work. So I've always been able to read people's energy and get downloads, and I get downloads for people. So when someone comes to see me and I describe it, the best way is like when people, if you imagine you're in a hospital and between shifts the doctors leave your notes at the end of the bed, and someone comes to see me and it's like I'm given their notes. It's like a kind of their Akashic records and notes, what it is that they need to work with quickly in order to clear the blocks, in order to to get unstuck, in order to move forward. The old stuff, like whatever it is, like we go in, it's like it's kind of precision. It's like very precision. It's very dynamic, and so it works quite quickly, which is wonderful. But also it works to what people can hold as well, because I work with your guides. So we are of service in your session. I am of service to your soul, and I work with your guides and all of my own people. So it's like a download. I get your soul download, really.
Amazing. And, you spoke a little bit about karma. Can you talk to us about, what it is that we're doing here on this earth, and what does it mean to have karma? Like, do we all have to play out our karma, or do we have choice?
Well, the basic understanding of karma, sort of from the kind of ancient sort of Hindu script, and and the Buddhist understanding and teachings of karma is, it's a spiritual law. It's a spiritual law of cause and effect, and that is true. It's that there is a truth in that. So somewhere, your actions will have it will have implications on your karma. But what I believe, and this is for me really clear, is that we in the lifetime, the gift is the lifetime. The gift is being able to transform and really alchemize that karma. So there will be things that we are given our stories. We're given the sacred contracts. Like, we do have sacred contracts with certain souls on the planet. We are meant to have that mother, have that father, that twin soul that's just not treating us very well, or whatever it is, that there are karmic patterns, but we do get to break them. So this idea, the Buddhist idea of the wheel of karma, pain and suffering, I believe that it is painful. Life is painful, and the lessons and the journey can be painful. But that is really the grist at the mill. It's the salt on the wound. It's the stuff that creates the pearl in the shell. There is a gift in the pain, and our wounds are the portals. It's a portal to our deepest transformation. And so, yeah, we get to meet the karma. We get to master the lifetime, and I believe that's really the journey. That's the fun bit.
Do you have any tools to kind of give us if we're facing a karmic sacred contract? Is there something that we can pay attention to if we feel like we're in a karmic relationship or a karmic work situation, rather than one that is more just kind of integrity or balance?
I would say this: always, have the humility to really sit with the pain, the pain of the pattern, right? Like, reflect, like, be really loving, be really compassionate, and sit and reflect on that pattern. Because there's certain stories that we can have a really deep karmic connection with someone. We can meet someone and just be in love and just be most, all of that karmic stuff, like, oh my God, I've met this person. It's so passionate, it's so deep, it's so connected. I know this person, they know me. And it's like, that may well be the case, but you don't have to then spend the lifetime working out that you don't want to be with this person. Like, you left them in the last lifetime, and it's like, you can get to brush against that person and see in that moment, like, this is going to be really too painful for me. I'm choosing to move away. I'm choosing to sidestep this dysfunction, but I see you, and I'm grateful for this moment. I see you, but I'm sidestepping this experience because I don't need it again. Okay. Some people need to go round the loop again. When it comes to, I don't know, finding that you're in a situation with the boss that's a bully, you've had the bully since a child, you keep doing that. Those are patterns that are really worth sitting down with and really looping back, like finding those, making the connections, and really giving yourself a break when you do it, like being really compassionate, but seeing the connections between the pattern, and then really looking to clear and heal the pattern. Right? What is your need? Like, what is the need that you have in you to stay imprisoned with the boss that's a narcissist? Like, why do you keep bringing in the narcissist? Because a parent was a narcissist, or it's the low self-esteem, and so it's like, allow the situation to give you the pins in the map. Like, rather than being like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here again, this is awful, I'm awful, it's awful. Like, what are the pins? Like, get your map, the map of the lifetime, and put those pins, and be really, really balanced and really kind, and just, okay, there's a theme here. Like, I am co-creating something here, and I'm going to choose to remove myself from that karmic story.
I love that. Okay, amazing. So what about the moon meditations? That's something that you have talked about a lot on your website. Can you tell us a little bit more about the relevance of the moon, and what is the purpose of working so closely with the moon? We have, I think, a new one coming up this week.
There's a new moon in Leo, which is really powerful for, like, new beginnings. And it's the fire. Leo is a fire sign, and brings that real courage and that fierceness to our dreams and our ideas, and asks you to shine your light. Shine in your light, be the light. And the reason why I work with the moon, actually, I mean, the moon is ancient, and obviously from the Mayan times to Egyptian to Celtic to, and all of the religions and our culture, our collective consciousness, we look to the celestial bodies to really, again, to map the sacredness of our time here on the planet. So to map our time. And really, I was in Barbados about 25, 22, 25, 20, between 22 and 25 years ago. And I went to a plantation, and it was bought by actually an uncle, but my ancestors had been on that plantation many, obviously 200 years ago as well. But I could really feel this strong. It's when I got really guided to like work with the moon, and it was before the moon was. Again, it wasn't. No one talked about the moon. And also I was working with crystals at that time, and the message was to like really to plant crystals in the earth, to give thanks to the mother, to be in relationship with the mother earth. And it's about cycles. So in Celtic culture, like, wherever your land is, you start to work with the land. I was obviously born in England, so and my mother's English, so it's but we inherit the land wherever we are. And in Celtic culture, it's very, all of the equinoxes are celebrated, and the same in Buddhist culture, and the moons, the changes in season. And really it's about maintaining a sacredness of life, and reminding. It's a remembrance. So it's really like just a prayer. So it's each moon has its own vibration. Each moon brings its own medicine. So if it's a Scorpio full moon or new moon, it'll ask you to look really deep into your kind of the cave of self, right? Really deep into some of the sort of the sexual blocks, or those dark, energetic kind of things that we hide from, and it really brings those to the surface. If it's an Aries moon, it's about new projects. So you can harness the power of each moon. And really, in its simplest form, it's about just remembering twice a month, on the new moon and the full moon, who we are and where we are, and just kind of realigning. Like, what are my intentions today? Like, what are my intentions for the next 2 weeks? What are my intentions for the month, for the 6 months, for the year? And it just brings us into presence.
Amazing. So your intentions, let's talk a little bit about that. And I have so many more questions about the moon, but I want to actually focus on intention and manifestation, because I think a lot of people in our audience are really, really interested in those particular topics. So what does it mean to set intention? And then also, are we creating our own reality? Like, how much of it is from our subconscious and our also conscious thoughts?
Yeah. So again, and this is why, so every full moon, every new moon, it's the new moons, you write intentions. The full moons, you release what it is you want to let go of. But I believe in like writing intentions all the time, or bringing your awareness back to your intentions, back to your manifestation, like every day, like spending a couple of minutes a day with that new reality will create the new reality. Okay, that is a spiritual law. Like, we understand that, we've known about that. That's been around for millennia, but obviously recently we've had different ways of understanding that. So The Secret, Joe Dispenza, like, people talk about the power of the unconscious, Louise Hay, to create our conscious reality. And it's a truth. Okay, so when I went from being a secretary at the BBC to like becoming a TV presenter, the reality, like creating that, like manifesting something out of nothing, I find that is something that I really understand. Like, my soul just understands it. Just, I don't get in the way of myself. I just understand it. So it is a truth. But then there is this thing to think about in terms of intention, because if we're not connected, writing stuff on a piece of paper gets you nowhere. Like, it's you're going through the motions. So our intention doesn't have the power of our soul. So it doesn't have the power, like, everything is energy. So if it's just coming from the mind, then it's going to have obviously a lot less power than if we're really embodied and it's coming from all of us. And that's why we go back through the heart. We can create who we want to be, where we want to be, and what we want to be doing. We can co-create that in alignment with all of the energy that exists in the universe, and it's a wellspring out there. So again, that's why the alignment it gives that turbocharge, like, turn on the ignition, get in the car, like, get out of Dodge, right? Like, bring it on. So that feeling of like, I want to fill this up. I don't want to sit here writing intentions in my unconscious, I'm really nervous and anxious and depressed. But I'm also, I haven't got the turbocharge of like everything aligned and, my ducks in a row, and it's like liftoff. That's what alignment brings to intention. It brings the rocket fuel.
And can you talk to us about the alignment piece? Is that just connecting with your heart, connecting and being more grounded in your body? Walk me through, and I know this is so hard sometimes to describe, like this invisible energetic world.
It's fine. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
We'll try. We'll do it.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
great.
Yeah. So if you could talk us through, like, what does alignment mean energetically to you, and how can our audience start to get there?
So again, I want to bring it back to this simplicity, of just, you got this. Okay, so I want to bring it back to this thing of like, just begin today by giving permission. That is enough. Like, you are already enough, and I believe that. That is a truth. So alignment is like, I give permission today to be in alignment. And what it means to be in alignment is to feel your feet on the ground. You are grounded. So that is the chakra system, but it's also a real connection to the soul wisdom. It's the awake quality. The Buddhists talk about an awake quality that does reside in the heart. That awake quality, and it's an inner wisdom. But what happens when we're aligned is we open ourselves up to the divine plug-in. And the divine plug-in for whatever religion you are, whatever you believe in, is we can just uh, integrate it as light. It's light energy, but it is source and it exists. So you are opening yourself to that infinite source of vibration that is yearning to meet you. And in amongst that, like, we also have our guides, we have our family in the light, we have our ancestral family in the light, we have angelic energies, we have a whole host of soul family that are like, let's do this, like, we're here for you. When are you going to show up for yourself? Like, when are you going to do it? Like, we are waiting for you. And often we have to be on our knees and we have to be last chance saloon. And it's like, then it cracks open the heart. Then it cracks open this possibility for alignment and to experience the infinite. But really, in the first instance, to feel the truth, which is, we're surrounded by energy, and we're surrounded by allies. We are not alone. We are not alone.
And Estelle, do you suggest that people work directly with their guides, like to call on them to pray? What is it, once a day? I mean, how often do you seek the external invisible world?
Well, I would say, so for me, I work very closely with the angelic realm, which is a realm of light. It's an angelic realm, and everyone can ask for their angels. So again, the angelics work through. They've existed again since millennia. They're in every religion and culture. The Native Americans talk about beings of light, and so we can call in the angels. The thing to do is call them in. You call them in light and love, in light and love, in light and love. So always 3 times, and ask in the simplest way for. Sometimes I say the angel of the day, and it's a lovely way to get to know the angels. You just can get a book on the angel of the day, or an angel that you just have a connection with. So Archangel Michael, Gabriel, Metatron, or just your guardian angel, just a being of light. Like, I'm just calling in a being of light, in light and love, in light and love, in light and love. Stand by my side, by my left, by my right, behind me, before me, above me, and below me, so that every step I take is in your shadow. Let them come and guide you, and be protected by them. Ask, and they will come.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, I'm just thinking about the moments in my life that I also just, asking for prayer and guidance just feels so good, and I think a lot of people, oftentimes we feel like we have to go through everything alone, or we have to, things have to be just so hard. And this synchronicity is really powerful because I mean, at least for me, I find that when I relax and when I open up and receive, then everything just starts to fall into place. Like this idea of acquiring and acquisition and just, pushing against, oftentimes doesn't get you any closer to what you want.
No.
Right. So, Estelle, can you tell us about some of the stories of clients that have transformed from sessions with you? And then we'll talk a little bit about our session.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, generally the, transformation happens. It can happen in, so many different ways. So people, come to see me. So someone came to see me today. She'd had one session. And of course, I get all the influx of messages are like, I'm blocked. I've just got a block. It's been here for life, And the first session is often, it's kind of quite earth breaking because we kind of shatter some by the stuff that some of the ropes, the kind of some of the chains. We kind of shatter some of those, and so. Firstly, because of how you're witnessed in the session, which is really witnessed in your truth. So in your deepest, most vulnerable place, there's that witnessing. The witnessing frees part of it just frees us. So we're like, that kind of, oh wow, like okay, it's okay to be in this very, very vulnerable place. It's safe. So sometimes it's like a door, opening a door in the psyche, in the house of self that's never been opened, and we're in that place together. And then after that, all sorts of transformations happen. So it might be that you get the kind of suddenly out of nowhere, like someone came today, and her husband, she'd been sort of, she'd been in this sort of really stuck place with her husband, and he finally, like the next day, he got offered a job. He hasn't been offered a job for 12 years, and it was about him stepping into that and her allowing herself to lean into him in a way that she hadn't been able to. I've got one client who came on the love retreat. She hadn't had sex for 22 years. She's 70. She came on the love retreat, and after a week, she met a life partner. A lot of life partners get, people stuck in love. That the deep one, is love. Like, do I give myself permission to love and be loved, like really deeply, really truly? So, a lot of people have those shifts. People are able to feel. They go from a lifetime of just feeling so alone to not. It just disappears, right? Because they get put in contact with their higher selves. They get in contact with the soul family, like the guides that I was talking about. So suddenly the inner world, the inner life, it becomes just this garden of possibility and potential. So really there are very sort of bespoke shifts, but on the level where people, someone came to see me and she had been in a narcissistic relationship for 10 years and she got out and moved out the next day. And everything flowed. So she kind of found a flat. She was able to move into that apartment building, and and then she met someone else, and she's engaged. Like it kind of, people make those massive shifts, or it's the same with in work. So it's kind of like a frequency upgrade. It's like a frequency hack. So wherever the person is, they will shift in a very specific way that is really necessary for their souls to grow.
I love that so much. And Estelle, we could drop in and talk a little bit about our session together. And so without giving too much personal information, because it was, there was a lot of, I think, vulnerability in our conversation about just like where in the journey of life there were certain blockages and like, how I was feeling. But I think I'd love to talk a little bit about the very end of the reading where you used tarot cards,
yes,
and also the last 3 cards. And I think you had mentioned that you don't use them as much anymore, but it was a really fun, experience to go through that process.
Yes.
So maybe we could talk a little bit about those like last 3 cards, because they're about the future. And this podcast episode is actually going to be released in a couple months.
Yeah.
So who knows what's going to happen in a couple months? But
exactly. Yeah. Very exciting. Yeah.
Okay. So, Estelle, now that we have this tarot card reading in front of us, can we talk a little bit about the right side of the cards, which is about the future, and perhaps just walk our audience through what's playing out here for me?
Okay, so just for everyone, anyone the tarot card enthusiasts out there, or anyone who's starting to read cards. I mean, I do love a pack of tarot cards, and I love oracle cards. And I obviously used to do the cards all the time, back-to-back sessions. And so this is a Celtic cross. And we've got 4 cards, as you know, that go up the side. So the one at the bottom of the 4 cards going up the side is the Fool card, and that represents that place represents a sort of a kind of energy for the question, for the whole question. And what you have there is the Fool, which is you beginning a new cycle. So the Fool card is the 0 card of the major arcana of the pack. The major arcana are the big significant signifiers, the big themes of the pack, and then obviously they go into the suits. They go into the hearts or cups. They go into rods or swords or pentangles or coins. So this Fool card, this picture of this young person with a little dog snapping at the heels on the edge of the abyss with a little, I'm traveling off, I'm on a new adventure, I'm on the road, is at the end of one cycle and the beginning of another cycle. And it's a wonderful card to have as we begin something new. So I think we were talking about the fact that you'd moved recently, and and all of the things that come with that. So this is a wonderful validation of that. Then in the next card up is your environment. So it represents the environment, and whack bang in the middle of that, you've got the King of Cups. Now, the King of Cups is, for people who don't know the cards, cups represent love. They're all of that sort of gorgeous kind of love stuff. Obviously you get the light and shade in all of the packs, so some of the love cards aren't so good. But the King of Cups is representing, in its most simplest form, a man who is offering love. So it's a new love story. It's a new relationship. It's definitely a love, has a love energy to it. So it's really, we would say that it's not work, and the reason why is because when we come to the last card, and I'll explain that when I get to it. Then the one above that is the Moon, and that's the placement of that represents hopes and fears. So it can either be hopes, and it can be fears. And you kind of, if you're working psychically with the tarot, you'll get a lot of information. And if you're working sort of technically with the tarot, it's kind of obvious sometimes which is which. So here you've got the Moon, and the Moon represents with the 2 howling sort of dog wolves, and the Scorpio, and the scorpion in the water, and the Luna, and the tears and it's about sort of disillusionment. It's about deceit. It's about sort of the things that are held in the shadow. So actually, in this case, we've got the doubt. So, and it's a great place. We all have doubts, right? So it's a great place in the setting of the cards for your psyche to express its doubts. It doesn't always do it there. Sometimes you have the hopes rather than the fears. But when we are starting new things, we all feel fear. We have we question. It's part of being human. It's part of the frailty of our humanity. So there we've got the Moon card, and then the last card. For me, I read it as the outcome or the challenge. But that's my very specific spin on the way that I read the cards. Mostly traditionally, that would be kind of an outcome. And here you've got the Lovers, so that's the 2 naked bodies under the moon, and under the clouds, and under the sun, and under a big angel. And it is about really that. So it's about a union. It's about communion. It's about relationship, new relationship. It's about love, in its physical and spiritual and mental, capacities. And that then, if you're reading the cards, you would take the King of Cups and couple that with the lovers at the end. And so we know then very clearly that it's to do with romance rather than work. And so that's our kind of last four cards there.
Amazing. Thanks, Estelle.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that my mom's going to call me. she's always so confused about the timing of these podcasts because we always record them a couple months before we release them. So
hello, mum. Hello, mum. It's all looking rosy for Yasmin. Yeah.
Oh, it's so fun. So, Estelle, what are some of the things that you've seen as an outcome of the pandemic that has kind of changed your perspective on this work?
Well, the pandemic has, it's had a double-edged, it's a double-edged sword. It's had, it's got an underbelly, two realities to it. What I see in young people, is, and also young adults, like, people in their 20s and their 30s, but I work with teenagers too. And there's a lot of social anxiety, going back into the world. It's created a sort of a vacuum. And I really believe we have to rehabilitate from the pandemic. There's this thing of like, oh, the pandemic's over. It's like, no, let's just get real. Like, that was it was traumatic. But then there was this other side of the time and space it afforded us to just be, and to be without distractions, to be without the constant filling up of our time in our lives with, the mind chatter. We were really forced to stretch. We were really forced to lean in. You could only go for walks in the park. You could only go, could see very few people. So it was, people would meditate. People were like learning yoga. People were like trying to grow their souls because they were going inwards rather than looking outwards for the distraction, so much distraction that we're bombarded by all day long. And so I feel like that was a real awakening. There was an awakening part. There was an opening in the pandemic, which has been incredible in terms of people wanting to work on themselves and meet themselves in a different way and do the work and grow in, on the inner planes. And then I also feel like there's this underbelly of trauma too, which then it's woven into the story as well. So especially with younger people, they lost really significant, like 2-3 years of really significant time. I think when you're older, you've got more life experience, more to go on. But there's 8-year-olds that develop tics, and 19-year-olds that find it really difficult to be around people, and I think that's going to take a little bit of time. So it was both. It's not either or. It's a both.
Right, and also I imagine that people experience a pandemic so differently, right? Whether you were living alone or with a partner or with a family. And so I find that to be most interesting. Like, if you were living alone during the pandemic, like, how are you reintegrating back into society? And, what does that look like?
Yeah. I mean, I really feel for you. I really feel for people who spent pandemic alone. It was just, it's really been really tough. And actually, I started my moon meditations. I put them online during the pandemic, and I was doing online meditation satsang just to bring a community. I think that our communities are so vital. They're so fundamental, and we know this. We've heard this so many times, and Indigenous people talk about this. The power, the life, the fundamental desire for us to be in community, to be in a collective, to be connected, to feel empathy and compassion, and exist together, and not live these lives where we don't know who we are, where we are, living alone in kind of tower blocks and around lots of concrete. It's sort of, and you can do that, but it's like, but how do you also how do you also feel less alone? And that just feels really important for us moving forward in terms of a in terms of consciousness. Our interconnectedness, is vital.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think that the community piece was just so incredibly poignant during the pandemic. I mean, I think many of us didn't even realize like how much we had probably taken for granted.
Yeah.
And I know for myself, coming out of the pandemic, I am like so focused on making sure that I see my friends as much as I can. Like I'm not going to let work get in the way, and then just also consistently create spaces, really sacred spaces for a community to come together, whether it's through dinner parties or weekend trips. So
Yes.
yeah.
It's about really re-engaging that, isn't it? It's about really, remembering this kind of weird, strange hiatus that we had, as the first time in the history of the world that we all sort of came to this crazy standstill. Like, what is that about the karma of the planet? What were we undergoing? Like, it was a, it was this really bizarre time. And remembering, so not doing that thing that we can do, which is like emotional amnesia on sort of trauma, like taking good stuff from that and like you say, re-engaging, like doing the dinner parties, the things that were of that mattered to us in the pandemic, that it really, it kind of highlighted our relationships and the things that are most important when it comes down to it, and keeping that wisdom, alive.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe you could talk a little bit about your residential retreats.
Yeah.
And yeah, because it's something that I was super curious about myself, and just the amount of reviews that you got and the way people talked about it. It was just like very intriguing.
Yeah. What were you intrigued about there? What kind of piqued your interest mostly, do you think, Yasmin?
Yeah, I mean, I think people's kind of ability to expand and transform and transmute and alchemize in a short period of time,
Yeah.
that to me was just profound, because I've done a lot of different types of retreats, and I don't usually hear people talk about things the way that they did on your site, and also just how open their heart felt and how much closer they got to their heart. I think that's just a missing piece that I find in general. People are not as connected to their hearts. They're sort of connected to themselves, or they try to connect to themselves on retreat, but not necessarily to their hearts.
Yeah. So those retreats have become something quite extraordinary in the sense of they have created. There's a sort of a very powerful holding a container for really a sort of flow of the sacred feminine, and the sacred feminine entered my life in my early 20s, and I sort of, as part of my growing, I sort of, I went in search of the sacred feminine to find the mother before the mother before the mother, to find, through my own mother wound. And it's really it's the wound that I meet the most in others. And really the sacred feminine really came through at that time. And so the love retreat is not about me. It's about the energy that moves into the space and moves into the room, and then moves through people. It moves through every single person in that space, so they feel, it's like it's a non-negotiable. So you go from, oh, like, whatevs, to, okay, I've touched into interdimensional space, and this exists, this is happening, this is real. So it's a shamanic angelic experience, and I call it a shamanic. It's a shamanic angelic modality, which is a kind of a grounding into the the true sort of shamanic way, which is that groundedness with the earth, but then also a place of working with the sort of higher realms, and really it's the sacred feminine that is held in that space. So I don't do the work, the sacred feminine does the work, but it's and that's why it's so powerful. So someone came on it recently, a journalist, and she really described it as, she would never have imagined, I don't think, that she would feel the presence of the sacred feminine, because she was a bit of a cynic, and she has, and she did. So when you do these things that we sort of hear about or think about or aspire to, like when it's real in a lifetime, like it's like, oh wow, like, and what happens is the grace that comes from feeling the grace of true divine energy, or the light energy, it really brings you into a very powerful and lifelong, transformational place in your life, in your lifetime. So it's kind of like it shifts forever.
It's so cool. I definitely want to check that out at some
You
point.
need to come. Yeah,
Yes.
totally.
And you offer them a couple times a year, Estelle?
I do, and I'm doing my I got very strong guidance. I had to offer my first men's retreat this year, so I'm doing that in November, and I'm really excited about that. So I've done a women's retreat in May. I'm doing another one in October, and I'm doing the men's one in November. And next year I'm planning to do one in Spain or abroad or somewhere where people can come to, from everywhere really. But it is it's wonderful work, and I'm deeply honored to be facilitating that work.
Wow. Amazing. Okay, well, I am going to put that on my calendar.
Yeah.
So, Estelle, we're actually coming up at time, but I have just a couple more questions. What sort of things have surprised you the most since you've been on this journey? I mean, I feel like you've been in this game for 20 years. You've seen so much. Looking back, like, what has surprised you?
I think I will say what it's not what surprises me. It's what humbles me every single time that I feel someone come in. So when I'm doing the bespoke one-to-ones, or I'm working on the retreat, and either an angelic energy shows up or a family member shows up, and I am, every time I'm so humbled by the love.
Hmm. Beautiful. Yeah. Oh, it's so nice to meet someone like you, and I also just feel so cradled and held in your presence, and I'm sure that a lot of other people feel the same way. So thank you so much for your work. And what do you want to tell our listeners about their wellness and well-being? Like, what's sort of your main takeaway?
I would say that just in this moment, I would like you to just sit with the power and wisdom and the beauty of your heart energy, and sit for a moment, if you can, suspend the judgment, pour away the shame, give permission, be expansive, allow heart to speak to you and breathe through you and be with you. And I want you to also know that you are not alone, and there is a journey back to self, and it's waiting for you.
Oh, so beautiful. Estelle, who inspires you?
Well, I've been inspired, by so many teachers along the way. I learned TM when I was really young, and I had we used to go to this wonderful meditation center, Transcendental Meditation Center, where I lived in East London. I used to go all the time to kind of satsangs, and I was really inspired by the idea of spiritual community. I'm also, I had a wonderful Sufi teacher, part of a Naqshbandi tariqat, and I found that time and experience deeply inspiring. I'm inspired by my clients. Every step of the way, I'm inspired by the courage. I'm inspired by the perseverance, by the panic, and the trust that they can move through that panic, they can move through that white knuckle, and they come back, and they do. And I'm so inspired by that. I'm so, it's incredible to witness. And I'm inspired actually by my mother. She's all my family members. She's been an interesting karmic relationship. By the good, the both sides, the light and the shade of my mother. The way that she allowed the psychic interdimensional part of life to really exist in our world, and she never shut that down. And how she carried her wounds, and I've learned to alchemize those, and also by my son, who is a Taurus and has taught me so much about love, So really, it's the day-to-day interactions that we have that inspire me. That remind me of the divine, remind me of the God. That in people and in in the world.
Beautiful. And just special shout out to your son, who's a Taurus like myself. Yes.
Love a Taurus. Love a Taurus. Absolutely love a Taurus. Yeah.
What's your chart?
So I am Aries, I'm Virgo rising, and I am Sagittarius moon.
Amazing. Amazing. I'm Taurus, Cancer rising, and Aquarius moon.
Oh, wonderful. So that Aquarius and that all of your unconscious is, this amazing sort of visionary work you're doing.
Yeah, it's the emotional world is connected to the moon, and so that's been so interesting to dive into. And
yeah. Amazing.
So Estelle, where can people find you if they want to work with you, if they want to take your workshops or retreats? Do you have space for that right now?
Yeah. So you can find me on EstelleBingham.com, and I run retreats. Get onto the list, and we're going to organise those for 2023. I am also in the process of writing a book, so that's going to be very exciting. So I've just got an agent for that book, and that's coming. And find me on the website, and get in touch. And I'd love to hear from you.
Amazing. Okay, and we'll leave your website in the show notes so that people can find you. And I am so excited that you're writing a book. I will be the first to read it. So
amazing. I'll let you know.
Yes, we'll have to do another conversation on the book when it comes out.
Fantastic. I'd love that.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Estelle. I really, really appreciate it. I know the time difference is a bit, I guess, big between Los Angeles and the UK. So I appreciate your time so much.
It's been such a pleasure, and just a joy. So I really appreciate you having me. And I look forward to speaking to you soon and seeing you again soon. Much love.
Likewise, Estelle. Thank you. And for our audience, thanks for joining and for listening. In this episode, we learned about how to reconnect with your heart with Heart Whisperer Estelle Bingham. And you can tune in to Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. Thanks again.